Lake Boulevard. Utah Highway Patrol Trooper Eddie Wright said the semi was northbound along US 89 when it reportedly lost its brakes. The truck was not able to turn at the intersection with Bear Lake Boulevard, crashing through the garages. According to emergency crews, a 100-gallon propane tank was also hit, forcing evacuations of homes and businesses nearby. Firefighters and paramedics extricated the female passenger from the truck. She was flown by medical helicopter to a hospital in critical condition. The female driver was transported by ambulance to a hospital in stable condition. Photos from the scene showed extensive damage caused from the crash. Wright said no one else was hurt during the crash and impairment was not suspected. The accident occurred at the same intersection that has a history of damaging crashes and fatal accidents. And days after the Bible was removed from many Davis School District libraries, a challenge has been made to ban the Book of Mormon from school shelves. The district confirmed a request was made Friday by an individual who wants the book removed due to violent content. A committee will now review the religious text to decide whether it also will be taken out of school libraries in the district. The request to remove the Book of Mormon comes a day after the Davis School District announced officials had removed the King James Version of the Bible from elementary and middle school libraries. The Bible is allowed to remain in the district's high schools. The same committee that will review the Book of Mormon found the Bible does not contain sensitive material as defined by Utah Code, according to a district spokesperson, but contains vulgarity and violence that caused concerns over age appropriateness. KVNU weather at 4:06 for tonight. Partly cloudy skies is the forecast. The overnight low tonight around 50. And then tomorrow, kind of stormy in the afternoon, partly cloudy in the morning. Clouds roll in, rain showers likely, chance of thunderstorms in the afternoon. Some storms may produce strong gusty winds. Warmer temperatures, mid-80s for the high. Threat of showers Tuesday night into Wednesday as well. And it's been a bit warmer. 79 has been our high so far this afternoon. Right now we have 78 degrees at KVNU. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
This is David from Roof Rescue. This past winter in Cache Valley was the worst in recent memory, reminding us of the sheer power of Mother Nature. Snow, ice dams, and record low temperatures left behind a trail of leaks, broken gutters, and damaged roofs. Let's get those issues inspected and addressed so that when next winter comes around, you can focus your attention on your family, the holidays, and winter activities instead of leaks, drips, and ice dams. Call today for your complimentary inspection at 435-999-4268 or visit us at roofrescueusa.com. Roof Rescue, providing watertight peace of mind.
Help us recognize the champions in our communities. Submit your nominations by visiting kvnutalk.com. The Above and Beyond Salute, sponsored by Firehouse Subs.
You're in the market to buy a home. You're dreaming of a new home that you can fill with new memories, but new homes just aren't in your budget. Or are they? Visionary Homes wants you to know you don't have to buy a used home. Buy new. Buy now at Visionary Homes. As a trusted award-winning Utah home builder, Visionary Homes understands that your home is the center of your life, bringing friends and family together, creating memories you'll cherish forever. Buy new, buy now at visionaryhomes.com.
Don't let concerns about today's events derail your long-term financial strategy. Edward Jones Financial Advisors can help work with you to understand today's financial landscape and how to be positioned for the long term. Edward Jones can give you the tools for a reasoned, disciplined approach to investing. Get started by calling one of the 7 Edward Jones locations in Cache Valley. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
For the people.
We are waiting with bated breath for news from the Cache Republican Party meeting an executive committee tonight.
With Jason Williams.
And I'm really excited about this next segment. We have 2 guests here in studio. We're going to talk about something that we've talked about many times here on the show, but from a bit of a different angle.
Weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 a.m. and 102 FM.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. I'm really excited about this. I caught this over the weekend, courtesy of a Facebook status update, and I downloaded the report and took a look over it. And my first reaction was, here's this organization that has been around a really long time. We've talked about them on the show before, even had some representatives on the show before years ago. And they're just quietly out there doing some pretty significant stuff. And I thought we've got to get this on the show. So I reached out to them today, and they were nice enough to lend us some of their time this afternoon. It's the Bear River Land Conservancy organization. Their goal is to conserve critical lands in the Rich, Cache, and Box Elder counties, and then also provide educational opportunities, cleanup and restoration projects, opportunities for the community to volunteer and get out, tools where you can understand more about the ecology of northern Utah at large. It's an amazing website. You can find it at bearriverlandconservancy.org. But more amazingly, again, this work they've just kind of quietly been doing for the last couple of years that really should have been on the front pages of newspapers repeatedly. Joining us right now from the Bear River Land Conservancy, we have Operations Manager Gabriel Murray and Bear River Watershed Coordinator Matt Coombs. And Gabriel, Matt, I appreciate you both taking some time for KVNU today. If you can, maybe start us off, tell everybody how you each got involved in this.
Yeah, this is Gabe Murray. So I kind of came about this a little over a year ago. Prior to this position, I was working as the Bear River Watershed Coordinator with the Utah Department of Ag and Food and the Division of Water Quality. And I had been in that position for a few years, working on kind of conservation throughout the watershed. And I was informed about this position, and I thought that this was an excellent opportunity to kind of really work on conservation throughout the watershed, but on a different type of conservation than I'd been working on. And this conservation is more focused on land protection.
That's amazing. And for you, Matt?
Yeah, so I've been here just under 2 years, and I work in a shared position with Bear River Land Conservancy and Sagebrush Steppe Land Trust out of Idaho. But I actually also worked for the state of Utah, so I was with Utah DNR for about 7 years before coming over into this. And a lot of my interest really is, our private lands are so important, especially those agricultural lands and the wildlife habitat that they provide. And so I was really looking for the opportunity to work in conservation, specifically with some of those private landowners that have the lands that provide some of the public benefits we all enjoy.
This is now a quick aside on all of this. Representative Casey Snyder, which I apologies if either of you had to work with the guy before, but he said, Matt, that you can tell quite some stories of fishing in Alaska, and so maybe we should do a show on that one day as well. But both of you come at this from just a real appreciation of understanding what northern Utah would be like were we to lose this, right?
Yeah, very much so. I think, we have an incredible land base and incredible agricultural land base, to be more specific. That's all private lands, and those private lands provide just a tremendous amount of habitat and also food that we rely on. So it really is critical that we try to preserve kind of key pieces of this landscape.
This is, it's an opportunity really to understand more, but also to do a lot to help. And back to Representative Snyder, and I'm joking. I know he's not that bad to work with, but if you do want to tell any stories, feel free. We love to give him a hard time here on the show. When he was working with the organization, I know things were, things were happening kind of on a smaller scale, and it was, doing what you can with what you had. And then I see this report over the weekend, Gabe, maybe for you specifically. The last 2 years for the Bear River Land Conservancy, to me, it seems like it's been a huge couple of years.
Yeah, I think, we're a small nonprofit, and, when Casey was running the organization, it was just one staff. Now there's 1.5 of us, so not too much more capacity. But, we've really relied on partnerships to be able to accomplish what we've accomplished in the last year or two. And if it wasn't for partnerships, we wouldn't have these stories to tell.
Sure.
So it's really our partners that have allowed us to make this happen.
But you've obviously been very, good at choosing those partnerships and good. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I from the report, we're looking at how many acres now? Just in the last couple of years, how many acres of land set aside for conservation?
Yeah, a little over 4,000.
That's amazing.
A lot of that, though, again, was due to our partnerships and really being able to leverage opportunities and partners throughout the watershed to achieve numbers like that. So,
and one of those projects was a smaller agricultural conservation easement here in the valley, and the other one was a larger conservation easement with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Ah, okay.
We kind of work with a pretty diverse mix of projects and funding partners and that sort of thing on each of our projects.
It's honestly just amazing to see, and I know for a lot of Cache Valley residents, they might be, familiar with some of the conservation work that the Bear River Land Conservancy has done when it comes to Bear River bottoms, some work out in Trenton as well. But you've got a footprint in the Bear Lake Preserve, the Mendon Meadow Preserve, and you're hoping, as I understand it, to kind of expand this going forward, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We have 3 to 5 projects right now in the works, kind of throughout Cache County and Rich County. So we're actively pursuing additional conservation easements and working with landowners as we speak to try to really expand what we're doing and protect more area and more habitat.
It's honestly just amazing to see. For listeners, they do have a newsletter you can subscribe to. You can also connect with them on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and all of that can be found at bearriverlandconservancy.org. Again, an organization just kind of quietly doing some huge things. Thousands of acres of land set aside for conservation through easements, partnerships, and more. And also, Gabe, you and I talked about this earlier today. I think this is so cool. But more than $7 million you've been able to raise for the organization in the last few years through grants and things like that. That's a huge amount of money. I mean, though, obviously we need a lot more to conserve what we need to conserve probably. That's a huge amount of money for a nonprofit organization to get access to. Has that taken some creativity?
Yeah, it's really taken a little bit of creativity, but also partnerships. I really want to emphasize that a lot of the funding that we've been able to kind of line up and bring into alignment is a lot of federal funding for projects. Sure. So a lot of that funding will go directly to on-the-ground conservation. So that's really the objective of a lot of that funding is to kind of put conservation on the ground. Obviously, as we continue to grow, we also need support, right? So we are a nonprofit, and we are a 501c3 charitable organization. And so, as we kind of look to grow and put more conservation on the ground, we are also looking to grow as an organization, and we definitely need the support of the community to achieve that.
I think it's important, too, for those who there are those who sometimes bristle at the thought of setting things aside. The phrase oftentimes will be locking them up. And that's something as an organization, you guys have always tried to stress that you're talking about conservation so that it's still there in the future for use. In fact, just a few days ago, you were celebrating, I can't believe they do this, but you were celebrating on your Facebook page this is a rare thing. There's rarely enough water to actually do this, but some folks kayaking Bear River's Black Canyon, which is just amazing to see. So you're about use, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely about agricultural use when it comes to our private land conservation. And again, these are working lands that we're working to conserve. Sure. And so it's about what those lands do as a benefit to the watershed as a whole, whether that be providing habitat connectivity, whether that be providing food and fiber for us into the future. We're really working to protect these lands. And we're also, I really want to emphasize that we're working with willing landowners. Sure. And so we're not working to necessarily take something away or prevent something from happening so much as we're working with willing landowners to exercise their rights.
Sure.
To provide a legacy, to provide benefits to the public, and also to provide for future agriculture on this landscape.
The Bear River Land Conservancy working throughout, 3 counties, the Tri-County area here, as it's known here in northern Utah, Rich, Cache, and Box Elder counties, setting aside thousands of acres of land, working land, as Gabe has explained, for various uses, but also conserving it for the future. A lot of this land would already be gone if they hadn't done this. And Gabe, as you've mentioned, and Matt, maybe you can weigh in on this as well, but there is an ecological impact to this. We've seen recently some news stories, I think, that kind of highlight a little bit of what we're talking about when we talk about the ecological ramifications of conservation. We've seen these stories of flooding along the Wasatch Front in Salt Lake, in which you see these parks or these meadow areas that have been intentionally left as drainage sites. You also see a report of lawmakers traveling to Israel recently, where they talked about these biofiltering systems, natural biofiltering systems necessary to having clean drinking water there in Israel. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about, right?
I think on certain levels, when you talk about protecting lands along river corridors, you're talking about kind of providing for green infrastructure that allows for natural flooding to occur without, inevitably flooding homes and having to rebuild those homes. So, really what you're talking about is smart land preservation in those scenarios. But we're also working to, conserve lands throughout the landscape. Other lands, that we're working on help to provide mule deer habitat, wintering habitat. They help to provide corridors for elk, corridors for migratory birds. So kind of a broad spectrum there.
Yeah, I'd say that's definitely become one of our big areas of emphasis, is kind of connectivity in the landscape, particularly from an ecological perspective. And that's both, fish and aquatic habitat, as well as those mule deer corridors, critical stopover sites for migratory birds, and kind of those most important pieces of land that allow movement of those species. And a lot of that happens to be on working agricultural lands that have provided that, for the last 100+ years. And so that has become a lot of our emphasis as an organization.
Again, amazing work being done by this organization. As you've heard just a little, and we're just tip of the iceberg here with listing some of the things that you can find just at their website in the news section, bearriverlandconservancy.org. And how does so voters recently approved the Cache Open Space Bond, and the Cache Open Space Advisory Committee has now been populated and set up and has begun working. How does that change the dynamics here? Did you all get a chance to help inform them as well from your own experience?
Yeah, so Bear River did definitely, provide support into that effort, and we've been involved in a lot of those conversations with the bond initiative. I think, if nothing else, it certainly increased awareness around conservation easements and some of the things that we're doing as a tool for landowners, but also, something that benefits the public and, the regional identity of Cache Valley and surrounding areas and that sort of thing. And, hopefully as that program comes about, then we'll be able to, apply for and use some of those resources and kind of match them up with, other funding sources from NRCS and Utah Department of Ag and Food and various folks to kind of leverage those funds into achieving more conservation on the ground.
You can connect with the Bear River Land Conservancy organization again on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. They have a newsletter you can subscribe to. Visit their website, of course. A lot of great stuff there, bearriverlandconservancy.org. You can donate directly there. They do rely on financial support from the community, as well as these grants we've discussed and more. You can drink Logan Canyon coffee if you're an IBIS fan. Every bit of that helps. A portion of every sale of the Logan Canyon blend goes to the Bear River Land Conservancy each year. And, of course, volunteer. You guys are always looking for volunteers to help with many things, from restoration projects to cleanup to actually getting involved through these volunteer committees. Honestly, just a fascinating organization. But for someone out there looking at maybe volunteering, for a question for you both, Matt and Gabe, what should they expect and what should their first step be?
Yeah, I think the first step should probably just be to reach out to us through our website. We have a contact page. Our newsletter kind of highlights a couple upcoming volunteer events that we have, so you can look for that in the newsletter. Our volunteer events kind of vary, it's everything, like you said, from doing a little bit of restoration to some cleanup, also to some Ute ladies' dresses, monitoring. So we have a little bit of everything for everyone.
Very nice. Matt and Gabe, both of you, appreciate your time today, especially with me reaching out on short notice. For listeners, if you'd like to see the report we referenced here and some of the amazing work done by the Conservancy over the last couple of years, I've linked to it on our Facebook page, but you can also find that and more ways to donate, get involved, see their previous work, upcoming projects, even some tools to help you understand the ecology of northern Utah better when it comes to water, land, and everything. BearRiverLandConservancy.org is their website. You can also find them on Facebook, Instagram, and more. Our guests have been Gabriel Murray, Operations Manager, and Matt Coombs, Bear River Watershed Coordinator with the Bear River Land Conservancy. Matt and Gabe, thanks to you both for your time. To our listeners for your time. We'll be back right after this.
It doesn't get better than summer camping in Utah, and it doesn't get any bigger than the Utah Summer RV Palooza, presented by Bish's RV. We're bringing the biggest RV show in the region to Layton, June 8th through the 10th, for 3 days only. The Layton Hills Mall is where you'll find a massive selection of top RV brands like Go Play, Ember RV, Forest River, Northwood, and a whole lot more. Get up to 20% below cost on select new 2022 RVs, and get 90 days no payments on approved credit for all play and no pay till September OAC. Summer RV Palooza is where you'll find a brand new 26 BH travel trailer. It's high quality at an undeniable value at a sale price of only $19,995. The selection is huge, and so are the trade-in offers. Get max value for your current RV when you trade in at the show. Shop the Summer RV Palooza now at Bishes.com/Utah RV Palooza. 3 days only, June 8th through the 10th at the Layton Hills Mall. Sponsored by Bish's RV.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. You heard it in our news cycle last week. You can still read the full story by Charlie Schill at CashValleyDaily.com as well. Big announcement that Utah will be receiving a $5 million grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation for its Connected Communities program. This led to us getting a lot of questions from listeners. What is that? How does it affect me? Why are we excited about this? Well, U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg said your zip code shouldn't determine whether you have access to safe, affordable transportation. We're helping communities make transportation safer and more efficient, particularly in places that haven't received enough resources in the past. What that translates to here in Utah is this $5 million grant to UDOT, part of more than $50 million through this full investment package nationwide. And the funds are earmarked for 8 projects across the country, Utah getting one of those. And here's what Utah plans to do with that. They promised that the project area for what they're calling its connected vehicle concept studies will include disadvantaged communities, poorer communities, more urban communities that are oftentimes left out of all this. Connected vehicle technology is basically equipment, applications, systems. Otherwise, they use radio to address safety, system efficiency, or even mobility on our roadways. And it uses data from these short-range communication broadcasts, peer-to-peer radio transmission, basically, approximately 300 meters at most. And it senses what travelers, vehicles, bicyclists, people in wheelchairs, pedestrians, motorcycles, buses, trucks, anything and everything, what they're doing to identify potential hazards. But the reason this is a big deal for Utah is that a lot of our rural communities, think Rich County, Think down there in the Great Basin area. Think even areas in San Juan and Garfield counties, even areas of Box Elder County. UDOT has never studied this to see basically what can be improved when it comes to pedestrian traffic, when it comes to, I mean, we don't even know in some of these rural communities, are these streetlights where they're at, is that a good spot for them? Are they timed well? Are they, this is basically what this $5 million will go towards is giving UDOT the chance to expand their research into connected, the CV concept of it's called connected communities, into rural areas that have been traditionally ignored. So that's good news for Utah. If you want to read more about it, again, full story from late last week at cachevalleydaily.com by Charlie Schill, linked on our Facebook page. And we'll be back with more of For the People after the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:30, and the news is brought to you by Logan Extermination. After months of playing Will He or Won't He with members of the Cache County Council, the county's on again, off again, Clerk Auditor Jess Bradfield has officially resigned. In his letter of resignation effective June 4th, Bradfield named his chief deputy, Bryson Bem, as his temporary replacement as clerk auditor until such time as newly elected county GOP chair Jeff Cox can call a local special election. In that letter to members of the county council, Bradfield claimed credit during his term of office for constructing a nationally recognized ballot processing center, formalizing county audit processes, making county audits public, modernizing clerk processes, meeting state ballot tracking requirements, establishing a dedicated tax relief office, and other accomplishments that he shared with members of the clerk and auditor's office staff. Bradfield also thanked current council members for their cooperation. Bradfield had a contentious relationship with some members of the previous county council since assuming office in September 2020 following a special election by members of the Cache County Republican Central Committee. In his letter of resignation, Bradfield also praised County Executive David Zook for his demonstrated leadership. A permanent replacement for the clerk auditor's role will be selected by members of the Cache Republicans in a special election likely to be called within 45 days. The day African Americans in Galveston, Texas learned that they were free, June 19th, 1865, has become a national commemoration of the end of slavery, known as Juneteenth. Utah State University is poised to observe its third Juneteenth celebration, a week-long series of events from Monday, June 12th to Sunday, June 18th. This year's theme is Educate, Celebrate, Activate. President Biden signed a bill designating Juneteenth a national holiday on June 17th, 2021. Utah Governor Spencer Cox designated it a state holiday last year. When President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation January 1st, 1863, it only applied to people in Confederate states, not those enslaved in Union-held territories. It was 5 months later when Union troops landed in Galveston that enslaved African Americans living there learned the Civil War was over and they were free. The day gets its name from the combination of words June and 19th, the day which is celebrated. Juneteenth is a celebration of freedom. It's also a reminder there is still more work to be done to protect those who experience marginalization and or exclusion in learning, working, and living environments. That's what Dr. Jane Arungu, who is USU Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, stated. The week's kickoff event is Monday, June 12th, a Juneteenth welcome reception from 3 to 4:30 in the big room, the Big Blue Room in the Taggart Student Center. All are welcome to join various speakers commemorating the significance of the day. Events will continue at the Taggart Student Center the following Friday at Mignon Barker Park, Saturday in Richmond, and the musical celebration Sunday at the Danes Concert Hall on the USU campus at 7 p.m. Complete information is available at USU's Juneteenth event webpage. A new study has revealed the most commonly reported crimes in different states across the U.S. The research conducted by criminal defense law firm Jorge Vela Law analyzed the latest statistics from the U.S. Bureau of Justice to reveal which crimes had the highest number of reported incidents in each state throughout 2021. The 5 most commonly reported crimes in Utah were 1. Destruction, damage, and vandalism of property, drugs and narcotics violations, drug equipment violations, and all other larceny as well came in 4th. Simple assault came in 5th. Jorge Vila, who carried out the research, said the data provides a fascinating insight into crime in the U.S., while incidents and charges may vary from state to state based on demographics and local laws. It's important to know which crimes are most prevalent in one's area in order to know what security measures to take. And more than half a dozen houseboats momentarily caught fire at a popular boating destination on the Utah-Arizona line on Friday, igniting while tourists and jet skiers stood by before the flames were extinguished. The decks of boats docked at Wahweap Marina on Lake Powell smoldered as black plumes of smoke wafted into the air above the lake and the red rock walls that form its perimeter. Robert Wilkes, the owner of Skylight Houseboat Management, said the fire began in the early afternoon and grew for about an hour and a half. Wilkes, a trained firefighter, used a garden hose and worked with park rangers, who he said arrived soon after the boats ignited to help put out the fire. As of Friday evening, the fire had been extinguished and contained. The cause of the fire is being investigated, and information will be released by the National Park Service when available. KBNU News Time is 4:36. KBNU weather tonight, partly cloudy skies, low around 50, and then becoming mostly cloudy. Rain showers likely and a chance of thunderstorms in the afternoon tomorrow. Some of the storms may produce strong gusty winds and warmer temperatures tomorrow, mid-80s for the high. Still a chance of showers Tuesday night, 50% chance of storms on Wednesday. It's been to 79, and it's 79 degrees right now at KBNU. KBNU weather brought to you by Logan Extermination. Pesky weeds are popping up all over your lawn. Get a hold of the Terminator, Logan Extermination, to be ready for summer. They'll come to you and terminate those ugly weeds. Call Logan Extermination today, 435-752-8450.
With summer here, our beautiful lawns face a new threat. It's a threat you can't see because it's happening below the grass level, at the roots. Those nasty bill bugs and grubs are beginning to hatch and they are hungry. Your lawn is a smorgasbord to them and they can't wait to belly up to the table. Get a jump on those bugs by calling Logan Extermination today. They'll apply a custom spray for bugs and also fertilize to keep weeds under control and your grass growing tall. Logan Extermination, 752-8450.
Saudi Arabia, trying to keep the price of oil from falling further, will cut oil exports by 1 million barrels a day starting next month. The announcement at the OPEC Plus meeting in Vienna, the rest of the cartel not coming to an agreement on a production cut. The White House, according to National Security Coordinator John Kirby, isn't worried.
That's a huge challenge. Last time I was in Iowa, I spoke to many Republican voters.
And the pilot of the private jet that flew over Washington, D.C. and crashed into a remote part of Virginia seemed to be slumped over and unresponsive. That from the fighter pilot who intercepted the wayward plane, which later crashed in rural Virginia. The FAA says all 4 people on board died. Former Vice President Mike Pence soon to start his presidential campaign. He filed papers today. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie to announce tomorrow. Meanwhile, New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu says he's not going to run. On Wall Street, stocks were lower. The Dow down 199 points today. Dave Packer, ABC News.
KBNU News Time is 4:39. Let's get a broader look at stocks, including local numbers from Edward Jones.
This is Tony Smith with Edward Jones with the Financial Market Report for June 5th. Equities closed modestly lower today, giving back a bit of Friday's surge that capped off a 2% gain for the S&P 500 last week. Globally, European markets were also lower, while Asian markets were more resilient. Small caps were notably weaker, and the bond yields were little changed on the day, as weak readings from the latest ISM services and factory orders report sapped some of the enthusiasm around the economic outlook, countering the optimism that came from last week's strong job report. 10-year Treasury yields are back near 3.7%, up notably over the last 2 months, but still well below last year's highs. Elsewhere, the OPEC Plus meeting over the weekend delivered an oil production cut announcement that includes supply cuts from Saudi Arabia and Russia. In response, crude oil prices rose today, though they remain below the $84 mark reached in April. With the markets moving on from the recent debt ceiling drama, the focus is back on the relationships between inflation, economic activity, and the implications of both on upcoming Fed moves. The Nasdaq closed down 11 points at 13,229. The S&P was down 9 points at 4,274. 10-year Treasury yields are trading at 3.69%. In stocks of local interest, Apple was down $1.37 at $179.58. Nucor closed down 35 cents at $140.94. Amazon was up $1.05 at $125.30. Delta Airlines closed up 9 cents at $37.10. Walt Disney closed up 23 cents at $91. The price of crude oil was flat at $71.84, and the spot price of gold was up $8.04 to $1,978. This has been today's financial market report for June 5th, brought to you on behalf of Edward Jones, member SIPC, and financial advisor Ted Karen, serving individual investors with personalized attention and long-term financial advice. 878 South Main Street in Smithfield.
My friend John Hansen at the Duct Hunter has constantly educated you about the need for ductwork cleaning in your home. But what about your cabin or summer home outside the valley? You need that home's ductwork cleaned too. With high pollen counts in the mountains, dust always in the wind, and road construction ever present, the old adage of out of sight, out of mind is bad. Give the Duct Hunter a call at 770-4813 to clean out those dirty ducts in your summer home.
We are the Duct Hunter. Breathe better, save money, protect your home. We are the Duct Hunter.
Happy Father's Day from Birch Creek Golf Course. For Dad this Father's Day, our 10 rounds of 9 holes punch passes are on sale. Our FootJoy golf shoes and golf shirts are also on sale for Father's Day. Or get Dad a gift certificate that can be used for golf or golf lessons from our PGA teaching staff. So for Dad this Father's Day, I invite you to choose Birch Creek Golf Course. And happy Father's Day from your friends at Birch Creek.
Mike Pence is announcing for the presidency. Guess what? So is Chris Christie. What in the world is going to happen with that duo? We will discuss what is Mike Pence's path, if at all, to the nomination. Plus, Buck.
We'll also dive in on this Tuesday episode of Clay and Buck to the latest on the Democrats with RFK and Biden. Is this going to continue to be a thing? Talk about it.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
He won't come. He's too busy.
Jenny, of course he'll come.
Happy birthday!
Dad!
I know. You guys didn't think I'd make it, but come on. Could I really miss my son's birthday? Here you go, Dan.
Thanks, Dad. But today's Jenny's birthday.
Give me that. Happy birthday, Jenny!
Need to get closer to your family?
Nice football, Dad.
Give your family everything. Give them your time. From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Just an amazing question from a listener here for a political junkie like me, because I've been reading about this actually quite a bit. The question from a listener is there's been talk kind of more recently than in previous years, but in previous times when it has come up, it like now kind of fizzled and gone nowhere. But talk of expanding things, like expanding the number of Supreme Court justices, expanding the number of representatives in the House of Representatives or the United States Senate. Now, on the federal level, not with the Supreme Court, and I think there is a reasonable debate to be had there. We've had more than we have now, 13. We've had less than we have now. And there's, I think, reasonable argument that unfortunately only comes up for political reasons, but a reasonable argument to be had for the court being underrepresentative right now at 9. But that's at the federal level. And when it comes to the House and the Senate at the federal level, there are actual rules about this. There's a calculation on number of seats and apportionment by population and voters. Here in Utah on the state level, which is the question this listener had, it's kind of just up to the legislature, which changes in makeup from year to year, or election to election at least, not year to year. And but the listener wants to know, is it time? And the listener sent me an interesting article from a political scientist here at Utah State University talking about this, talking about, what some of the population numbers per representative target goals are, the best ratio you can get. And my personal opinion is we're not quite there yet, but it's right around the corner, and we should be talking about it now. Increasing the number of House representatives and state senators in the entire state, of course, but especially here in northern Utah, as you watch population grow, I think we are nearing probably, not as close as some parts of the Wasatch Front and the Salt Lake and Utah Valley areas are, but we're near to a point where I think there's going to be talk of needing, if not a new state senator on top of the 2 here in northern Utah already, a third being added. I think we're even closer to there being serious talk of needing more House representation. And again, the issue here is fairness. It's not a partisan thing. It's not, to give Democrats more seats in the blue areas or Republicans more seats in the red areas. It's redistricting, which is easily politicized and gerrymandered, which our legislature does every 10 years. This is a different kind of thing where it can be more simply approached. You just count the people in an area, you look at the number of House representatives for the state and say, not enough. And then, of course, a fight breaks out and a long discussion has to happen over where the new seats go. But to answer the listener's question, I personally don't feel that we're there yet, but we're close to there. But political scientist Adam Brown at BYU disagrees with me. And I'll be honest with you, he's smarter and better informed on these things than I am. I read a lot of political science because I'm a junkie, but he this is his job. This is his area of research and expertise. And he concludes something entirely different, which is that he says we're actually overdue in some areas of the state. And when you look at population numbers and numbers of representatives, either you conclude that redistricting was a complete failure, not just because it was gerrymandering again this time by the majority, but also because you have these clumps of people that have like 2 representatives, and then you have it's kind of like when you look at the Electoral College or the United States Senate itself. When you have states like Wyoming with 2 senators, and then you also have states with a lot more people with also 2 senators, is that fair representation? The argument usually is, well, yeah, that kind of balances things out, because then you don't have concentrated areas like the East Coast and the West Coast calling all the shots, because that's where most of the people in the country live. Like the argument for keeping the Electoral College, although when it comes to the Electoral College, it doesn't actually achieve that goal, and that's a discussion for another day. When it comes to representation, I agree with those who say you can't just give all the senators to the populated areas, because then you have a different kind of imbalance. But this is a discussion about just the total number of representatives in our state legislature. And BYU political scientists write that because of population growth and because it's been so long since a number was added, since the number was increased in the Utah House and the Utah Senate, that we're probably about 5 years overdue. So I'm saying we're 5 years off from needing to do this, but should start talking about it now. Political scientists, smarter people than me, whose job it is to research and think about this stuff and talk about this stuff, are saying the opposite. They're saying we're 5 years overdue, and it's time to add more. So I know that isn't a direct answer to your question, Carol, but I appreciate the question, and that's the answer that is kind of more, here's where we're at. As to what officially has happened along this front, there have been bubbles of discussion about this. There have been times when it's come up during legislative discussions, interim meetings. I believe there was actually a task force or at least talk of a task force being convened on this. If there was one, the conclusion must not have been compelling because nothing happened. So it might have been just talk of a task force and it hasn't happened yet. I don't think we need a task force. I mean, they'd have to put together a committee. That's the way the legislature works. But I don't think we need years of study on this. I think you should be able to look at population numbers, population growth projections, and say, we need X number more. What's going to be interesting, though, about that when it does happen, and again, I'm saying we've got 5 years to talk about this before we actually have to do it. Political scientists at BYU are saying the opposite, that we're about 5 years overdue and maybe need to do it now for fair representation. One thing I know for sure, whenever the conversation happens, there's going to be a heck of a fight over where those new seats go, which should be determined entirely based on population growth. But it's going to mean a shift for everybody. So it's going to be a lot like redistricting, less politicized and gerrymandered, like the congressional maps are here in Utah every 10 years, but more of a different kind of politics, not a partisan politics, not a gerrymandering for a supermajority kind of politics, more of a why is so-and-so getting another voice and we're not? So it's going to be more community versus community, for lack of a better word. I hate to set this up as some kind of Utah Civil War about to happen, but you're going to have disagreements over how this works, because adding representatives, say, here in northern Utah, is going to water down the influence of the Wasatch Front or even the Salt Lake and Utah Valley areas where most people live. Not much, but some. The bigger concern, I think, would come from other rural areas like southern Utah, eastern Utah, where they're going to say, why is Cache Valley getting another one and we're not? We're already very outnumbered compared to the Wasatch Front, Salt Lake, and Utah Valleys. But now we're even more outnumbered because Cache Valley's less outnumbered. So it's going to have to – my prediction is they're not going to do this until the numbers add up in such a way that an even number of seats can be added, so that you could do it, say, 2 in northern Utah, 2 in southern Utah. I'm throwing out total hypotheticals here. But, it's a fascinating thing. And again, I feel like, we're basing – this is a gut feeling on my part. That's it. So take that for what it's worth. I feel like we've got a few years that we should start talking about this now. Some evidence from research done at BYU Political Science Department, researchers there showing some conclusive evidence, I would say, that we're actually about 10 years overdue on doing this and need to get right at it. The issue, again, is fairness and representation, and you don't want to create a situation where, communities are being iced out because of the number of issues and problems they have there, but they only have one state lawmaker in the House or the Senate. That creates a kind of a bottleneck that leads to direct impact on people's lives, and overwhelmed lawmakers who, just out of necessity for the scope of the job, become a bit out of touch. So we'll see. We'll keep you posted if I hear anything from lawmakers. I did reach out to a couple of lawmakers when I read this email from Carol asking this question and asking if we had any clue what was going on this front. the lawmakers I spoke with said there are currently no serious discussions about this happening anytime soon, but did also recall, like I did, that it has come up. So kind of a half answer there for you. We'll be back with more of For the People right after this.
Back in Logan for one night only. Gary Morris. Gary Morris live at the Danes Concert Hall on the USU campus. Gary Morris, June 10th with special guest Hearts of Steel. Get your tickets now at the USU ticket office or at Ruby's Restaurant in Logan. Gary Morris, live June 10th at the USU Danes Concert Hall.
Are you a renter looking for peace of mind and affordable insurance coverage? This is Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance. As an independent auto owner's insurance agency, we have access to multiple insurance carriers and will give you options. We offer renters insurance policies that can be tailored to fit your needs. From protecting your personal belongings to liability coverage, Quality First has you covered. Call us today for a free quote. Auto Owners and Quality First Insurance.
Are you a hot sleeper? Warm summer nights can make it hard to sleep. UNI Furniture recommends sleeping cooler with a gel memory foam mattress. UNI features a copper-infused gel memory foam that helps with coolness and circulation. It moves better with you, giving you the best night's sleep. UNI is also the home of Chair Heaven. There's a reason they sell so many chairs, including recliners. Father's Day is coming up. Plan to take care of Dad with a new recliner. For over 90 years, there's always been a better buy at UNI Furniture, downtown Logan.
Talking to your kids about the dangers of vaping can be hard. Getting them to listen to hot gossip is easy. So here's some drama you could share with your kid. Dude, did you hear about Cassie and Jake? No, but did you hear that vaping can cause irreversible lung damage and nicotine affects brain development? Nuh-uh. You don't need to gossip if you want to have an open conversation about vaping. So if you want to get tips on when and how to talk to your kids, visit talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 a.m, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
That's it for hour one of today's show. Hope everyone will stick with us. A full, fresh hour coming up right after this. Hour two of today's program continues. Hope everyone's enjoying the weather out there, but if you are, we're going to talk in hour two a little bit about some of the weather concerns coming up. Obviously, the big question is drought, no drought. Who knows at this point? Been a pretty wet spring. Blacksmith Fork River back down to, well, still up quite a bit, still pretty dangerous, but down closer to where you'd expect it to be this time of year, water flow and depth-wise. Logan River, kind of the opposite, still swelling, hasn't peaked, or if it did, it recently did, and still a warning out there from the city to steer clear of those banks and the river itself, of course, for the time being when it comes to recreational activity. But moving ahead, what does this wet spring mean as far as plans for infrastructure repair to water systems, reservoirs, and more? What does it mean as far as the state's long-term planning looking at new reservoir sites? Well, some water managers already expressing some frustration at the short attention span of our state legislature, saying that since it's been a very wet spring and we had so much snow over the winter, suddenly the legislature has lost interest, some are saying, in actually tackling some of these long-term issues we know are waiting around the corner, drought or not. That's frustrating to hear, but
A couple of lawmakers are firing back, saying they understand why it might seem that way, but there is interest in having this discussion. The question is when and who exactly should be a part of the discussion first, trying to prioritize limited resources, the Speaker of the House said, is as important as just agreeing to having the discussion in the first place. How this might all play out and how heated some of this might get as the state and local leaders continually find themselves with even more on their plates each and every year as population grows. Well, I'll make this prediction. Expect more disagreements, but how we can avoid them. We'll talk about that in hour 2 of today's show coming up right after this here on KVNU Logan.
KVNU Logan.